Okay, so before I get into actually doing a demonstration of how to draw the face, I'd like to show you the structure of the skull underneath the face, because once you understand how the skull is, because all of the features fit into the skull, then you'll understand better how to draw a face. So I'm just going to quickly go through this. These are line drawings of a face in full face, three-quarter view, and profile. And if I put the skull on underneath, well, let me turn the face off. So if you look at the skull, you see where the eye sockets are, where the hole is, where the cartilage of the nose fits into, and the jawline and the teeth running across, which is obviously where the mouth sits. So let's fade the skull back a little bit so you can see the line drawing. What the structure of the skull is, besides the fact that the eye holes and the nose hole and the teeth show you where the features should be placed, also if you think of it as you're drawing as kind of a shield shape, looking in the front, you're looking at the face of the shield, so you see the oval. When you get to three-quarter view, what you start seeing is that the top of the skull is an oval shape, kind of rounded. But the face itself is sort of like a shield or a mask in front of this. So as she turns to three-quarter view, you're seeing the edge of the shield. And in a profile view, you see the round skull sticks out the back, and the shield of the face is where all the features are. This helps you to position the neck properly, because you can see where the spine goes up into the shape of the skull behind that shield. So it helps you to know where to position the neck when you have a front view, a three-quarter view, or a profile view. So after showing you that, then I'll get into demoing how to actually draw a face from a photograph. You might want to pick out a photograph from a magazine or from online. We're going to start with the frontal face. So pick out a photograph like this one here, where you're looking at the face straight on, and we'll draw from that. So for this exercise of drawing a face, the first thing you need to do is find a photograph of a face that you'd like to draw. Look for a nice straightforward picture of a face. You can find something online, or Googling face portrait or face photo, or you can find something in a fashion magazine. You can oftentimes really find a nice face in a fashion magazine. But I want you to find a face we're going to draw what's called a full face, looking straight at you, because that's the kind of simplest thing to start with. So find a face that's looking as straightforward as you can. When you find that face, before we actually start drawing it, I would like you to observe a few things first. Look at it. We're going to figure out what the proportions are and get familiar with it before you start drawing with it. So first of all, remember the skull and how it fits into the face. Kind of gives you an idea of how this whole thing works, where the eyes are, the nose, the mouth, where it kind of gives you a clue what's going on there. And then we're going to look at dividing the face up into some basic proportions, which are fairly standard. Now, everyone's face is a little bit different, but there's some averages that are very similar in most all faces. Let me fade the face back a little bit so you can see these lines better. The first thing to notice is that the head is kind of an oval shape. The top of the head is cut off in my photograph, but I know that, the rest of it was there. But being oval, at the bottom, because of the way the jawbone is on the skull, you have to sort of slice off the corners of that oval to get the face shape. So it's rounded at the top, because remember the skull has that rounded area. The whole top of the head is a big round ball, kind of the cranium. But as it comes down with this face shield in the front, you have the chin and this jawline, like the edges of the shield. So if you have your oval, same top and bottom, and then just kind of come in with a diagonal line and slice off a little bit of extra, you get the kind of the chin and the jawline the way it should be. From there, you're going to divide the face in half down the middle, because most people's faces are pretty symmetrical from left to right, so you want to know where the middle is. And then if you come across the face, come halfway down from the top of the head to the chin. Now we're disregarding the hairline here. We know this is the top of her head. Doesn't matter where her hair starts. From the top of the head to the chin, about halfway down, that's where you are going to see the eyes. The eyes, most people's eyes are about halfway down the face. I know that seems like that's very, very low, but once you add the hair up here, that's, makes the eyes look like they're higher up in the face. So, trust me, halfway down is where the eyes should be. I'm going to make these lines on the face a little bit lighter um, so that they don't distract so much. Then from there, after you go halfway down for the eyes, go halfway down again, and that's usually about where the tip of the nose is. Now, some people have longer noses, some people shorter, but if you're doing an average face, if you go about halfway down between the eyes and the chin, you're going to locate the very tip of the nose. You're always safe doing that, because oftentimes in fashion, you're just drawing a kind of a generic face anyway. You're not trying to capture a portrait. Now, as far as where the lips go, sometimes people say they're halfway between the nose and the chin, but I don't find them to be that low down. They usually hang a little closer to the tip of the nose. So I think if you divide the area between the tip of the nose and the chin into thirds, usually the mouth falls about at that first third. That's a pretty safe place to put it. Some people have a longer upper lip and a shorter chin, but it's pretty safe to make a generic face by putting the mouth there. So following these proportions, you can actually draw the features in place, which I did here in blue so you could see them. The eyes, the eyebrows, if you remember the skull and how it has this eye socket, the eyebrow runs across the top of that eye socket. So that's why it curves around the eye. Usually the arch of the eyebrow is further out to the right. It's not in the center. So the first part of the brow is kind of long and swooping up, and then you have the tail end coming down. Eyes are somewhat almond shapes, usually they say. If you look at the iris here, you don't see the complete circle. Usually the upper eyelid hides part of that iris. So what you'll see if you take the circle for the iris and then draw the top of the eye in, it cuts into that usually. Otherwise, if you show the complete circle, she'll look like she's bug-eyed and staring at you. So generally, when a person's just relaxed and looking normal, this upper eyelid is going to cover part of that iris. And then you have the kind of a fold usually where the top of the eyelid is. There's usually a fold there, which kind of follows the shape of the eye. The nose, if you think about, there's kind of a ball at the tip of the nose, and then you have these two side pieces, and the nostrils just fall right in like that. Lips tend to be what they call bow-shaped. They down in the middle on a point, the two sides come up like a bow tie would, and then they come down again to the points in the corners of the mouth. And then the bottom lip is usually a little fuller than the top lip, and it's just single rounded. It doesn't have the extra points in like this does. So if you see, I made the edge of the face come down around my oval, but it kind of squares off a little bit here at the jawline. Ears can fall depending on the angle of the shot and depending on a person's ears, of course. They'll start somewhere around the eyebrow or the eyes, and they'll end somewhere around the nose. These ears seem a little bit higher than average, but I think she might have her head tilted down slightly, which would make the ears appear higher. So I think they're fine where they are there. So that's the basic proportions of a face. So when I have you start doing the demo of drawing the face, I'm going to have you do it this way, starting out with the oval, dividing it in half, giving it a center line, and we'll go through these proportions to do it. So if you feel when you're drawing that it would help, you can always stop the video and go back and look at this again to remind you of where things are, and that might be helpful for you. So pick out a face photograph to work from, and let's get started doing the actual drawing. Okay, so we're ready to start the actual demo where I'll show you how I'm going to draw the face. I found this face here, which I kind of like. She's looking straight forward, which is what I asked you to find, a face looking straight forward. So the first thing I'm going to do, just like when you draw anything, I think it's important to first look at what you're going to draw. So let's look at the proportions of this face, the way we talked about previously with the oval, center line. Halfway this way you have the eyes. Halfway between the eyes and the chin we have the tip of the nose, and then we have the mouth about, looks like hers is a little more than 1/3 of the way down. So what I want to do is, and if it helps you, you can take your Sharpie marker and actually draw right on your magazine face if that helps. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to, and I have my other supplies ready too. I forgot to say I have my watercolors and everything here too. So I'm going to look at this face, and I'm going to first do the oval that we talked about. So I'm sketching it very lightly because once again I'm going to want to erase this before I put any paint or anything on it. So here I have my oval. I'm going to bring my center line, my vertical center line down the face, the halfway point between the top of the head and the chin, because that's where the eyes are going to be located. Halfway between the eye line and the chin, where I'm going to throw the tip of the nose. I think that's where hers is. And then it looks like her lips are just about halfway down, but I'm not going to put them quite that far, and I'm going to put them in here. So between 1/2 and 1/3, I'll throw the lips. Oftentimes eyes, I might not have said this before, are about an eye width apart. Hers seem further spaced than that, but if you want to make a really average type face, you can figure on it being, about the width of an eye between the eyes. So I'm going to just mark off the corners of, so there would be the eye, the space in between the eye. And you notice there's space from the edge of the eye to the edge of the face, too. They don't crowd the edge of the face. Her eyes, like I said before, sort of almond-shaped. The outside corner is a little bit higher than the inside corner. So I'm going to try to get that look here by giving the upper arch and then the lower arch, so this inside corner is a little lower, the outside corner might be up here. So that's the shape of the eyes. Now remember I said the iris, although it's round, part of it's tucked under this eyelid. So here's the round, but see how I'm tucking it under the eyelid? You have the crease above the eyelid. On hers it looks like it's closer in the inside corner and a little further away out here. So I'm going to kind of try to follow that crease of the eyelid. Now if you look at her eyebrows, remember how I said they curve around the shape of the eye, but usually the arch is maybe 2/3 is from the eye to the arch, and then maybe 1/3 where it dips back down. So, and it looks like her eyebrows start right around the tip of her eye here, the corner of her eye. They're a little closer on this side, and the arch is a little further away. So I'll start like this, bring the arch down, do the same thing over here. You want them to be roughly the same. So you see how it kind of follows the shape of the eye, but it wanders a little bit further away on the outside part after the arch. Now we're going to come straight down where we have the tip of the nose was about halfway. Remember that I described the tip of the nose being kind of a ball. So if you think of the ball on the tip of the nose, then you have these two outer kind of shells that are around it like this. And what happens with the nostrils is they sort of come off at the bottom of that ball like this. They just sort of fit right in there. And then this kind of curves around the nostril a little. See how you can see that line curving down around the nostril? And then for the lips, you have the center line, the bow shape at the top of the lip. And they come down and curve and if you look at, always measure relationships, like how wide her lips are. If you come straight down from the corner of her eye, her lips are a little bit wider than that. So if I come straight down from the corner of her eye, bring the lips a little bit wider. So we have this bow shaped here coming down to the corner. Now the center line is not perfectly straight across. It sort of follows that bow a little bit. It dips in the center. So let's do that. And then the bottom lip, like I said, is just a single curve, and it's a little fuller usually than the top lip. So there's your basic face features. Now remember the oval of the head, but to get that jaw line, you see how you kind of slice off the corners a little bit. So the jaw might be about level with the mouth, so you make a diagonal line come in like this, and that's how you get the shape of the chin. So we're sort of making a little bit of an angle here instead of just being that rounded curve. Now her ears, it looks like they go from the eyebrow to the nose somewhere. So I'll just put them in there, kind of. I want the ears to be kind of level with each other, so I'll come across. So there's the ears. Look at her neck. It comes straight down. It has some width to it. It's less than the jawline. It's inside the jawline. In fact, if you look once again, it sort of comes up to about somewhere towards the edge of the eye. So let me give her. And because she's a fashion person, fashion figure, I'm going to kind of lengthen the neck more than it is in that. And then we'll give her the shoulders. So there's your basic face with the shape of the face. Now her hair is just sort of kind of pulled back, fly away kind of thing. So it looks like she's a part here on the diagonal. I can't see the top of her head. I would say it's about here. So how far down is the hairline? I'd say it comes, she has a pretty high forehead. Maybe the hairline comes into here somewhere. So we're just gonna kind of show the hair fly away the way it is there. I think it's kind of a messy look, but I like it. There's gonna be some hair in here coming over. Same thing over here. It kind of has this fly away. Actually, it looks very, maybe I wouldn't make it quite so messy. I think it's a little too messy. I think what we'll do is we'll just give her more of a nice, neat bun. So I'm gonna kind of take her hair and maybe one piece can fly away here to look kind of, the rest of it will pull back behind the ears. Maybe we'll even see some of the bun back here. Have it pulled back to a shape like that. So there's your basic drawing of the face. So from here, if you'd like to, we can add some color. It's not that difficult. What you have to kind of think about is where is the light source coming from. In this case, if I look at this picture, look how this side of her face is darker than that. And also if you look like under her eyebrows, it's a little bit darker. Under her lips, it's darker, the bottom of her nose. So I'm saying the light's probably coming like this. If it helps, I sometimes actually even put a little arrow showing where the light source is so I don't forget. So I would show this side of her face a little bit darker. I'd give her a little bit of shading under her cheeks there. You can see the kind of rouge on her cheeks. In a fashion illustration, you might want to put a little bit of pink on the cheeks. But the first thing I want to do before I start thinking about color is I have to get rid of my pencil lines, because otherwise if I lay paint on top, I won't be able to erase them. So what I'm going to do is, using my marker, I'm going to put in the lines that I want to be heavy. Like obviously fashion models usually wear a lot of makeup, so yeah, the lines around the face could be done very black with the marker. This would be like her wearing eyeliner. Even underneath the eye, we might define that very well. Let's get those irises in there, kind of hiding underneath the eyelid. I'll even put the crease of the eyelid could even be, I won't make it real heavy, but get a line in there. So even though her eyebrows are kind of on the blondish side here, I'm going to give them some definition by using some marker on them. Now I don't want to use too much marker around her nose. I don't want that to be like really emphasized. Probably the nostrils could get some marker. They're pretty dark. There's a lot of shadow there, but I'm not going to fill in a lot of other things with the marker. Now if you look at her lips, the center line is very dark and a little shadow under it is dark, but the top of her lip, I wouldn't want to put a black line there with the marker because it's not that well defined. I'm going to use my color to define the edge of the lip. So since this is quite a bit of shadow and it's dark in here, I'll put it in there, and maybe I'll just in the center of that a little bit of shadow. And since there's lots of shadow under her chin, so I'm not afraid to use the marker to define her jawline and the edge of her face. Looks like I made her face a wee bit chubby over here. I'm going to come in and straighten it out. Okay, and I'm going to have the jawline here. The neck. I'm going to give something to the hair with my marker. Here. Get the ears in. Now you notice I'm not drawing in every piece of hair. We're going to putting in a few strands just to make it look like it is hair, but pretty much I'm going to define. If you look at her hair, you don't see every single strand of hair. What you see is lights and darks, shadows and highlights, and I'll show you how to do that when we get to it. So now I feel like I have enough of the darks in, so I'm going to use my soft eraser and come in and erase all of my pencil. I might leave a couple little things like the edge of that nose lightly so I don't lose it, and maybe the top of the lip. I don't want to totally lose that because I've very carefully put it in. I want to know where it is. But the rest of this stuff I'm going to erase. I don't want all these lines in her face down the center. Okay, I think that's enough to go on. So now I'm going to use my paints. Her skin is very much going to be easy to get the color using, I believe, just some orange and lots of water, because her skin is kind of not that yellow. Right, so I don't want that yellow. I'll throw a little more. Now, see, I'm getting a pretty good kind of skin tone right there. So once again, and I'm going to test this. I don't know where my scrap paper is, so I'll just test it here. Yeah, I want a very pale color. What you do with watercolor is you start with the light colors, and then you add darker on top. You don't want it to get too dark too fast. So you see she has highlight on her forehead, highlight on her cheeks, highlight on her nose. So I'm not going to fill in solid with this flesh tone. I'm just going to, plus, you know, it's kind of a gestural, and I'm just going to kind of, I'll leave some white on her forehead here. Under her eyes it's pretty dark, so I'm not going to leave white there. Tip of her nose is white, so I'm going to leave some white there. I'm going to leave some white highlights on her cheeks. If I want to use some water and some rag, if I want to soften these edges so they're not, you don't have to do this, but it depends on how realistic you want to be. If you want nice soft edges, or if you want just the brush strokes to be visible. It's kind of a style choice. Let me get a little color on her ears. All right, so now I have sort of a basic pale tone in. So now I'm going to come back with some kind of a shadowy. That's way too orange, so I'll mix a little bit of brown in maybe. That might be a good shadow range. Now I'm going to get some water on some of it so it doesn't get too dark too fast. I want a little shadow over on this side. Now see, because it was still damp, it kind of is bleeding, and nice soft look. Shadow under her cheekbones. Models always have those cheekbones. Definitely shadow under the brow here. You see a lot of shadow there because the light's coming from above. So this much is pretty much in shadow. Even some shadow like underneath the eyes here. Now I'm just going to use the shadowing to get the shape of the nose, get that ball in the center. I'm going to come back in with fairly dark here, shape these outside edges here. See, so I'm not using the black marker. I'm just using the brown to make it a little bit more subtle. We want a little bit of subtlety there. But we do have some shadow coming down the side of her nose here. Now, once again, maybe I want this to be a little softer, so I clean my brush, just make it wet. I can lift up some of this and soften the edges. Some shadow underneath the mouth, because like I said, there's shadow there. Under the lips, I mean. Let's not lose the shadow of the cheekbone. I think that's enough to just define that she has some shape to her face, which is all we really want. Maybe it's a little dark on this side. Oh, and under her chin, obviously there's a good bit of shadow there. So I think I might want to soften this over here a little bit. Maybe soften this up here a little, just using a brush with water on it to soften those edges. All right, so next I'm going to emphasize the eyes. Well, she has blue eyes, so let me get some, I'll use blue straight from here. I think that'll be fine. So I'll give her some blue irises. Now I'm putting quite a bit of detail in this face because I'm drawing the face fairly large. If you were doing a fashion figure and the face were much smaller, you wouldn't get anywhere near this kind of detail in there. So it's kind of up to you. Now, what I don't want to do is I don't want to draw in individual eyelashes. That's just sort of a kind of an amateurish way to do it. So I'm going to take some black paint, water it down just slightly. This might be a little wet, but if you see, what you kind of get is just sort of a fuzzy shadow showing where the eyelashes are. You're not seeing individual eyelashes. So I'm just going to do this. Now see, it has the effect of being a I might have to, when it dries, when I might have to clean it up a little bit. It's sort of bleeding too much. I don't always have the patience when I'm doing a demo to wait till it dries. Sometimes with watercolor you have to be patient and let certain things dry before you go back in with other things. So this is bleeding too much, so it's nice, it'll give it some shadow, but when it dries I will go in with some black paint and define the eye area again a little bit. Same thing with the nose, because it was very wet, it bled, and I kind of lost these side things, so I'm going to put them back in now that it's drier. A little shadow under here. So let me get, her lips are pink, not red, but I mean you can make them red if you want to, but I'm going to use red with some water to give it more pinkish. Usually the upper lip is more in shadow than the lower lip, just because of the way the light falls. Your upper lip tilts in, and so it catches the shadow where the lower lip tends to catch the light. You see there's highlights on her lower lip. So I'm going to leave a little highlight there so you can see her lips are shiny and moist. I'm going to go back in once again when this is dry and make some darker areas, but that's a good start. For her hair, see how it's darker underneath here? You know, you get highlights on top. So I'm going to leave her somewhat blondish. So let me start with my yellow. I had a little bit of brown here. I think that's not bad. Kind of tones it down. So where it's highlights, I'm going to put a lot of this yellow in so you can see. Maybe this wispy hairs coming off might be yellow. Maybe some highlights here or on the top of this bun area here. But and here it looks like it's, but then as you see it gets in shadow, it's more brown. So I'm going to add some brown here, actually add some yellow into my brown, so I get sort of that golden brown, and so it's more in the shadow here. I still want some of the yellow in it. Maybe it's just some shadow here. Because it was wet, it's going to bleed a little, which I like that look. Okay, I need some brown on her eyebrows. They're way too, just, I don't want that little thin line, that's kind of goofy looking. So I'm gonna come in here with the brush and give her some nice eyebrows. I'm actually letting it look like there's a little bit of, you know, like you can see the kind of hair a little bit. Maybe under the eyes, this brown would be, and maybe I'll start the shadow of the eyelashes with the brown, so it's a little softer. Some shadow in the ears could be brown. So I'm darkening things that I feel they need to be darker. Like I said, you always start watercolor light with dark. Looks like there's more shadow here. More shadow here on this side of the face, under the... Definitely need to be darker under the chin here. So now you see you're really getting some 3D form to her face, which is, I think, looking a little nicer. Okay, so her eyes look a little starey, and you'll have some shadow under the eyelid, actually on the eye itself. So I think I'm going to need to take some of my, and of course you have a little bit of the pupil here too, but I'm going to give some shadow here. Now you see she doesn't look quite so goofy. Are the lips starting to dry? I'm going to put a little bit of red in there for some shadow on the lips. So the corners are usually darker. I said the upper lip is usually darker, but there'll be some shadow on the bottom here. Now I would like to put a little bit of lines into the hair, so you can see that the direction it's going. So not a lot, I'm not going to overdo it, I'm just going to in a few places. And I'm using a pretty strong brown here. More as it is in the shadow part. Here I'm just going to indicate a few hairs. Same thing over here, I could indicate a couple hairs, put more shadows down here or on this side it's the shadowy side, so it'd be darker. I'm gonna get my brown a little stronger here. Okay, and I think I'm almost at the point where I should say I should stop messing with it so I don't mess it up. I think that's pretty good. I mean, that's as far as I need to go. Maybe, like I said before, a little pink on the cheeks. You can sort of see her rouge. I don't know if you, it's not necessary, but sometimes it's kind of, I want it to be soft around the edges. So that's it. That's as far as I'm going to go. I'll soften this shadow a little. So using just water, I can soften these edges so they're not so harsh. So that's pretty much a face. I don't see anything else I really have to do to it. So that's kind of how you draw a face. Go ahead and start your picture. And if you have to, look at the directions again. And good luck.